robot. Gerald, Piggy. I am sorry, I wanted to make you happy, but you are still sad.
Hi guys, Marian here. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys how I taught my 4-year-old to read using this book, Teach Your Child to Read. So if you guys like this video, if you do, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and hit that red subscribe button down below if you want to see more of me and my content. I make videos about being a mom and being a Jewish mom, and I would love to have you as one of my subscribers. And if you want to follow along with my everyday life as a Jewish mom, then don't forget to follow me on Instagram.
Where is my white toothbrush? We have teeth that are white. The dog said.
Okay, so let's jump into it. So this is the book I use to teach my child to read. My son is 4 years old. We started with this book when he was about 3.5, and I'll share with you guys why we did that, how our journey went. We finished the whole thing. If you can't tell, we read every single page, cover to cover. We put some stickers on the back. So it has been very well loved in our house, and it took us about 6 months, I would say, to do the whole thing. So I'm going to share with you guys a little bit about our journey and a review of the book. I'm going to start with a review of the book for whoever is here just for that. By the way, I have 2 crazy dogs that are just having a love fest over there. So if you hear any little doggy noises, that is why. 2 dogs, 2 little boys in my house, so someone's always making noise, usually me. Okay, so let's get into it. Here is my review of this book. This is the gold standard for homeschooling, teaching your child to read, and I completely understand why. My review is a 10 out of 10, 100% recommend. I absolutely love this book for homeschooling or teaching your child to read at home. I also think it's a very good manual for how to teach your child to read, like the title says. If you're doing it alone or at home or trying to complement virtual school right now, I think this is a really, really easy to follow guide for parents. So the way we use this book is each chapter is a lesson. I'll show you guys an earlier one compared with a later one. And each lesson is about how to learn the sound of a letter. So each chapter starts with a new sound. So here's the new sound, R, R. Then it reviews the sounds you learned before, M, A, S, E. It also has these like pronunciation guides where it'll have a line on top of the letter if it makes its strong vowel sound like E versus A. And then again, just reviewing with these little punctuation dots if the sound makes a short sound like a T versus a longer sound like a R. If it's sounding a little complicated, I promise you it's not, because each lesson is just one little sound at a time. And then right from the beginning, it's putting those sounds together to teach your kid to read sounds. So for this, it'd be M, A, T, mat.
M, A, D, A, T, M, E.
Can you do that? And I promise you, this is the secret of the book, and this is why it works. This book is all about learning letter sounds and how to string them together. And if your child can do that, they can read any word in the English. If your child can do that, they can read any word in the English language. And when we finished this book, I actually looked into like, okay, well, what's the next kind of guidebook to get? And we didn't need it. As soon as we were done, my kid was already reading any book he picked up.
This is my pastor lumber camp. They are lumberjacks.
Because he has learned the letter sounds. Of course, there's little things that trip him up, like giraffe or, some complicated English words, the silent K, all those kind of things. We're still learning as we go, but we didn't need a second sort of learning book when we were done with this one because he's learned the sounds. So in the later chapters, you begin to read stories.
Sit in. See.
Try again.
Sun.
That's right.
Said I need socks on the feet.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
And again, they all start with either a sound to learn. So here's a really late chapter. This is 54, but we're still just learning sounds. Buh, buh. And then there'll be some where we were learning 2 letter sounds together, like cha, and the long vowels o or oo, that kind of thing. But right away, they're learning to string those sounds together to make words, take, charm, and then building them into stories. So you'll be amazed at how quickly your child will be able to read stories. So within the first few lessons, they're already building in short sentence stories, and it's amazing. And that's one of the reasons I love this book, is because it will really encourage your child by letting them learn on their own or with you and realizing how much they've mastered reading. So when they're able to read a word and then a sentence and then a story quite quickly into their reading journey, it really builds their confidence, and that's why I love this book. Another reason I love this book is because it's a book and not an app or a computer game, because it is really hard for kids to switch and make that connection between reading something on a computer versus reading it in a book. You'll notice when you start to read with kids that fonts can be a little tricky if they've only seen words a certain way. So there's a big leap I found between learning on an app and learning to actually read a book. And because they've realized through taking them through all these lessons that they can read, I found with my son especially, he is able, willing, and eager to pick up a book, even though he's not the type of kid who's overly confident, because he's associated in his mind that he can read letters and books. So when he sees his little books in his room, his mind's like, oh, I know how to do that. I know how to read that. Versus if you've only trained them to learn things on a computer game, they might not necessarily make that connection. By the way, my dog is now snoring up a storm. Okay. So the other things I love about this book is it's not memorization and phonics kind of stuff. It's just learning letter sounds, which again is the secret ingredient to reading any word in the English language.
Come, love, other, mother, brother.
Remember, if there's an E at the end, the vowel makes it...
Name sound.
That's right.
Row.
That's right.
Swimming. Jumps. Jumped. Start.
The other thing I like is it's not fun, if that makes sense. So this is not a gimmick. This is not a game. Each chapter is a lesson, and at the end they read a word or a line or a story, and it builds their confidence. They're not playing a game. They're not being tricked into it. They're actually learning to read, and I think that's a really positive thing, because again, when you're just playing a computer game, they're not making that connection if you're trying to trick them into learning to read, that they actually know how to read. One caveat I will give about this whole not being fun thing is we use some rewards. So for each chapter, by the way, I started doing a whole lesson. It's called not a chapter, a lesson at a time, which is usually 4 pages. We started at 3.5 years old, and I felt actually that my son didn't have the attention span for the whole lesson. He would kind of get a little bored at the end. So we switched to doing just 2 pages at a time. And that was fine. That probably took us between 5 and 10 minutes. And I like for my kids, when I'm teaching them things, to have it be less is more, in the sense that I want them to come away wanting to do more, not being like, oh my gosh, that was so exhausting, I never want to do that again. So I find ending lessons like this a little bit earlier than you would think is better, because then they don't have any negative associations of like, oh, this is going to be boring or this is going to take a long time. So that's just a little tip I have for working with this book. But we use rewards at the end of each chapter. So for us, it was screen time. So in our home, we watch Sesame Street every day at 4 o'clock. And that's when I cook dinner. But my son also likes to watch these like little videos on YouTube. I don't like my younger son to watch them, and I don't like my older son to watch them very often. So what I did is I used them as a really special reward for finishing up his lesson. And that's just what we did in our home. You might think that that's not good, or I'll let you have your own opinion on it, but it really worked for us. And I would say, although there were definitely days where he wanted to read only because he wanted some screen time after, to me, he really enjoyed the reading process. He wasn't trying to hurry through it. Like once we had the book out and he was doing the lessons, he was really enjoying it, and he wasn't like, come on, let's do the screen time, let's do the screen time now. So for me, it was a reward system that worked really well.
When the girl looked at the dog's teeth, she smiled.
The only negative I have about this book is that some of the stories are a little inappropriate in the sense that this book, I'm not sure exactly when it was published, but it was definitely not published in like woke 2020. I think it's 1983. Yeah, so you can kind of tell that in some of the stories. For instance, there are a lot of them about animals, but some of them involve like hunting. There's like some bullying and teasing stories. There's one where the one animal calls the other animal fat. So there's just elements of stories that in 2020 or 2021 would not be written that way. So I just like to give that warning. My son, like I said, he's 4, so I don't think he was really picking up on it, but when he would read something that I was like, okay, that's just a little too inappropriate, I would say to him like, we don't talk like that anymore, or that's not a very nice thing to say. So I would kind of just monitor some of those stories. It wasn't like over the top. It wasn't too much that I wouldn't recommend the book, but I just like to put that out there because we like to be, very welcoming, inclusive, family. I obviously have Jewish values that I'm teaching my children, and I would say some of these stories, again, it wasn't over the top, but just like stories about hunting and teasing are a little much for my little millennial heart. So I just put that little caveat in there. But other than that, 10 out of 10, highly recommend this book. I'll be popping in some footage, or I would have popped in some footage of my son reading so you can see, and I took some little Instagram stories along the way of his journey, so I'll put those in as well. But yes, this book definitely worked for us, and I highly recommend it. But again, you have to treat it in a certain way. You're not just going to open it up and your kid's going to be like, wow, this is so much fun. You have to kind of treat it as, okay, we're going to learn to read, and really instill with them the confidence and joy that comes with that. So that is my review of this book. That is how we taught my son to read. I hope it helped you guys if you're considering what to do if you're doing home learning or if you're looking for some help in this. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions I can answer for you. I've linked the book down below. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!